Hi everyone, I am checking in pre-video because this video is about me guessing the plots to various BookTube favourite books and series, and I knew I was going to get things wrong, but before I've even looked up the plots and stuff for the ones I guessed, I realised how many mistakes I made. As I am speaking, I've only edited or looked over half of it, so I don't actually know how bad the rest of the video is, but I know I've got at least two things wrong, in that I might be talking about one book as if it's a different series, but it's actually part of the same series, and likewise I may be talking about one series using one name and I actually mean another. So I went very wrong, and I was considering filming like a bit like this and explaining my mistake before I started talking about it, but that kind of negates the point of the video. The point is I'm meant to go wrong, and therefore I'm gonna leave it in. So enjoy it, please correct me, and I'll see you later. I'm really sorry I haven't dressed up. I am wearing my workout clothes. I haven't put any makeup on, but enjoy this loser face. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name's Bryony and I'm one half of Indecisive Readers. I was never planning on sitting down and chatting for these bonus videos, but I didn't know where else to fit this video in. I also never planned on them being bookish, and whilst this is bookish, it's kind of like a stupid kind of bookish. Basically, a couple of weeks ago I asked everyone to send me what they consider to be the most popular book Twitter, Bookstagram, BookTube books and series, because I then wanted to go through them, work out which ones I wanted to read, which ones I didn't want to read, and which ones I thought I didn't want to read but probably would end up reading anyway. I went through that list, came up with the ones I knew nothing about, and that's didn't even know what the cover was like. And then I realised when I started to sit down and think about the other ones, I didn't really know anything about them either. So this is me just basically going through the books and guessing the plots to them. Some I do know a bit more about, but most of them I just kind of know the title and maybe know the author and maybe know what the cover is like. The first one on this list is the Shatter Me series, which is the series with the eye on it. And every book has an eye, but they look slightly different. And therefore, I guess the book is about seeing something. So maybe the main character is like a prophetess, like someone who sees the future, and therefore she does something with that. It's like a magical power, maybe. Next on my list is A Little Life, which I'm pretty sure is that really, really, really sad contemporary that everyone has to really hype themselves up to read. And it's probably about heartbreak and loss and family and friends and the real nitty-gritty of life, and it's probably got many, many trigger warnings. Next on my list is Scythe, which I think is the book with the three people on the front and one's holding that thing that the Grim Reaper has, you know, the pointy. It's probably called a scythe actually. Is that a thing? I think it's not to do with farming, but Scythe implies it's to do with farming, so maybe, because I think it's a dystopia, maybe it's a dystopia where farming doesn't exist anymore. Then we have the Mistborn trilogy, which I assume is like a fantasy. Maybe it's got a bit of sci-fi because I know the author has done other sci-fi. The covers are white with a bit of black and some other colour. I don't know what this is about. What have I guessed? I've guessed, I think maybe magic doesn't exist in this world, so maybe some magic is going to come back. Then we have the Wheel of Time, and from the title I'm guessing it's kind of a circusy thing, like the Night Circus, where this circus just randomly appears, maybe once a year or once a decade, maybe something even longer, and it appears and there's a circus game called the Wheel of Time, and you spin this wheel and it takes you to anywhere in time, so in the past or the future, and that night you have to find this object, like a portkey maybe, that will bring you back to the present, and if not, you're stuck in the past or the future forever. I think that sounds great. I think we should write it if it doesn't exist and if that's not the actual thing. Next is the Foxhole Court, which I would say from the title was like high court political fantasy like Game of Thrones or even The Priory of the Orange Tree, but I feel like it's actually a young adult contemporary, like set in school, based around football or soccer or baseball or something. So I assume the Foxhole Court is actually something to do with the name of the school or the team, but I've got no idea. That's a very weird title for me. Last on my list of books I know nothing about is the Wayward Children series, which I thought at first was that Rainbow Rowell book, but I did look up the cover just to make sure and I was completely wrong, so I've got no idea. I still feel like it might be a fantasy about some children. Maybe it's in an orphanage. I don't know. Next we have some books that I do know something about. I am looking at my laptop. So we're just going to go through those. The first on my list is Sarah J Maas as a whole. Sarah J Maas has written many books. She's written, I think she's on her 4th series, which is the first adult series, and I am interested in reading that. I don't know what her 3rd, like young adult one, I think it's something to do with a Tower of Ash. I assume, once again, it is fantasy. Maybe it's to do with a tower that's on fire or has burnt down and rebuilding from that. Throne of Glass is a fantasy. I want to say like a young adult Nevernight, so less sex but lots of romance, but assassins and killing people and a bit political. I assume it's not a literal Throne of Glass like it is in Game of Thrones, and more like a metaphorical throne where it's like delicate and things can break easily. A Court of Thorns and Roses is her other like young adult book that I really know a lot about, and I think it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but with fairies and shape-shifting, and again a lot of romance, lots of sexy, hot romance, young adult, broody male love interests. That's what I gather from the discourse around it. Another big author I thought was a big author, but no one suggested her, so maybe she's not, but that's V.E. Schwab. I thought she was big because everyone seems to be talking about her, but no one suggested her. Her first series, I think, was A Darker Shade of Magic, and I believe this is about 2 different Londons, so maybe it's about travelling in those Londons and ending up in the wrong one. Maybe there's some magic, maybe there's some shady villainous characters, because I know her other series is Vicious or Villains, and that's about them being the main characters, so maybe there are some shady people in this too. I want to say, yeah, dark magic, don't know. Then I've got the Mortal Instruments series. I'm not interested in reading the Shadowhunter series because I watched the film, I think, and I can't remember anything about it, so it's obviously not made an impression on me, but I feel like I'm more interested in the Mortal Instruments because I feel like it's that but set in the past, so like angels and demons and shape-shifting and magic and love and magic. Have I said magic? I feel like I've said magic many times. I feel like these are all magical books. I think it sounds just a bit more interesting than the other ones, and I've got no idea why. I just think because it's set in the past, I just like the past a bit more. It's a bit more interesting, it's not something I'm aware of, and hopefully it'll seem less cringy than your typical, is there a love triangle? I don't know if there's a love triangle, but I feel like she loves her brother. Next on this list is Heroes of Olympus, and I feel like that's an older version of the Percy Jackson series, which I have read, but with more LGBT plus characters, so I don't know if that's like gay characters or bisexual characters or non-binary characters or trans characters. I feel like it's got a whole range of people, maybe some POC characters. I think it's just meant to be a really good series. I think people that found the Percy Jackson books to be alright have really enjoyed the Heroes of Olympus, so maybe it's more godly. Is it the one? No, it wouldn't be the one with the Romans, would it? Or is it? I feel like there's another series with the Romans. Then I have the Poppy War, which I am actually like 75% of the way through. I still don't really know what it's about, but as I was writing this, I remember the author saying it was like Avatar on drugs, which it is. There's a lot of drugs and hallucinogens and magic and battles, and it's like war but fantasy, but like based on real life war, but in a fantasy book. And there's like elements and magic and lots of drugs. So I'm slightly confused, but I wonder if there's going to be a dragon in the second one actually, because it's called the Dragon Republic. But that makes more sense now I read it actually, because one of the provinces is called the Dragon. Probably not dragons. Then we have the Lunar Chronicles, and I didn't know what the Lunar Chronicles was, but then I looked it up and realised they were the same as Scarlet Cinder and Crest, which I have heard of, and they are like fantasy fairy tale retellings but set in space. So I don't know all of them, but I'm pretty sure Cinderella is a cyborg, so maybe instead of losing her shoe she loses her whole leg or her foot or something that just falls off, and it's fine because she's a cyborg, it doesn't matter as much. And then maybe like a space ship captain comes to reunite it with her rather than a prince. If so, that sounds quite cool. I do kind of want to read those ones. They sound unusual, not your usual fairy tale hot broody man books, but they probably are because they were written around the same time. Then we have The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings series, which is like classic fantasy, and I feel like you're judged a bit if you haven't read them on BookTube, and I haven't read them. I have seen the films. I haven't seen the films recently, but I have watched them a lot. They are about dragons and elves and dwarves and magic again, and about these hobbits that have to take a magical ring to Mordor, and things go wrong, and they're very long books and classic books, and people like them, and it's the kind of classic I want to read. Then we have The Cruel Prince, which I don't know. I feel like most fantasy books are a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but I don't think this one is. But I'm pretty sure there's romance and fairies again, maybe some magical training. Because of the title, I want to say that there's like a ruler who's evil, so maybe we're trying to overthrow him and he is the cruel prince. Maybe the cruel prince is the love interest and it turns out he's not actually as bad as we think. No idea. I'm pretty sure it's the white book with the thorns. Maybe it's the Sleeping Beauty retelling if it's got thorns. I don't know. Branches on the front and a crown, which is Divergent. I think I read the first 4 chapters of the book before I went on holiday back in 2012, but it was just after I'd read The Hunger Games and watched the Hunger Games film and just thought, well, this is the Hunger Games but not as good, and so I never picked it up again. I think I may have watched the first film, possibly the second, but again they had no impact, and all I remember about them is that people hate them, that they're like really bad. But it's kind of an interesting concept. It's like people getting sorted into houses like in Harry Potter, but instead of only having 4 they've got like 12 or something. They're called factions, I think, and you get sorted into these factions depending on like how you act and how you behave, and families get split up and all that sort of stuff, and then you get made to do work depending on that, I think. Maybe not interested really, so don't think I will ever find out. Then we've got 6 of Crows and the Grishaverse, which I feel like might also be Shadow and Bone. I think this is by Leigh Bardugo, and she's like a very big author again, like Sarah J Maas, and I've got no idea what it's about. Maybe magic again, heists, gangs, kind of found family, evil people probably, or shady people that may be good, may be bad, probably some evil people as well. Surely there's a romance, and all I really know is it's going to be a Netflix show and people won't stop talking about it. Then, speaking of Leigh Bardugo, we also have Strange the Dreamer, which I think is the one with the blue guy. And I was going to say that maybe people are having strange dreams, but actually I think the blue person is called Strange. So maybe he's having weird dreams and it's affecting everyone else. He might not even be having weird dreams actually, he may just be having dreams and maybe they're like premonitions and they affect everyone, or maybe he's trying to stop other people from having weird dreams. Next is Fangirl, which is the book I mentioned earlier, which wasn't the one I was thinking of, stemmed from. So the one I was thinking of earlier was Wayward Child, and that is the story that the fanfiction in Fangirl is based on, but I think Fangirl was actually Harry Potter, but like drarry fiction, so like Draco and Harry, and then she rewrote that so it wasn't actually Harry Potter, so she could make another book out of it, I think. And I think Fangirl is about the girl writing fan fiction and getting involved in the online like fandom community. And I feel like I would have really enjoyed it when I was younger, because I was doing that. I was writing fan fiction for the Hunger Games, a lot of Hunger Games fan fiction. I found it a few months ago and realised I had like quite a lot of followers on there, and every now and then I'll still get notifications and be like, are people still discovering this? And I kind of want to reread it, but I also feel like it would be really bad. So let me know if you would be interested in seeing my reaction to reading my own fanfiction. I feel like it's long enough ago now that it won't feel like my writing, it won't feel familiar. I feel like I did some good ones. I also feel like some were really bad and cringy. But anyway, I can't remember where we were going with this, but Fangirl, kind of interested in, kind of am not. Have seen it a couple of times and tried to show them, nearly picked it up, but not quite yet. Then Twilight. Who doesn't know about Twilight? If you don't know about Twilight, it's about vampires who sparkle and possessive boyfriends and werewolves and love triangles and need I say more? Then we have Normal People and Conversations with Friends, which are contemporaries, I want to say, about being normal or not being normal and not fitting in. And I don't know anything about them. I should have put them in the category of I don't know anything about them, apart from I knew what the cover looked like, and that was kind of like my bar. If I know what the cover looks like, I can't put them in I know nothing about them. Everyone was talking about them. They're those kind of contemporaries that everyone loves them, and the TV show's coming out, so I don't really want to read them, so I'll probably watch that. Are you allowed to say that on BookTube? I feel like you're not. Then, Game of Thrones. Politics, boobs, dragons. That's all I know, and I feel like I've watched 4 series, and there are so many characters I don't think I've followed. I think I'd have better luck if I read the books, but it's such a time commitment to read the books. So I think it's about everyone fighting for this Iron Throne, and there are just like 100 different plot lines. Everyone's trying to be king, everyone's trying to do each other, and I don't know who anyone is. I'm very bad with characters and they just all blur into one, but everyone talks about it. His Dark Materials is like quite a, not like a classic, but like a new classic of children's literature, and it's about like going on adventures and animal companions and a bit of magic again, I think. There's a polar bear and a golden compass, I want to say. I maybe watched the film. I started watching the series and got very confused, but I feel like the animals change shape to match the children, and the children go on an adventure, and maybe the compass points you in the right direction, or tells you, well, compasses are meant to point you in a direction, maybe it tells you the truth. The last one I have on this list is The Selection, and again, probably should have gone on that list of books I know nothing about, but there's always girls in fancy dresses on the cover, and by fancy dresses I mean like prom dresses, not fancy dress. And so maybe it's about becoming a lady or debutante balls. Is there magic? Is there fantasy? There is sure to be romance. There are a lot of books that were suggested or that reminded me that are like popular, and I've already read them, so that of course includes Harry Potter, Nevernight, Percy Jackson, Ella for Oliphant is Completely Fine, Daisy Jones and the Six, or The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, Red, White and Royal Blue, Illuminae, The Diviners, Heartstopper and The Night Circus, If there are any I haven't mentioned like in that list or throughout the video, please let me know, because obviously I want to include them in my list. Please correct me on all the series. If there are any series I got drastically wrong, or if there are any I got right, please let me know, because I'd be interested to know how bad my predictions were, and whether if I guessed a book and said that sounds interesting, if it's not that book, if there's like another one that matches it. Also, just, yeah, tell me if any of these series are worth reading, because I don't know, I'm just reading them for the hype, so you might as well hype me up a bit more. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing if you're not already. Once I've put all the relevant blog posts out, I will link them in the description, and I will also link this video in their post. Comment down below if any of this is of interest to you. Also, because this is bonus content, let me know if there's anything more like this you want, or if there's any cat videos you want, or any bloopers and the like, because these videos are meant to cheer you up, so might as well go with something you want. And I will see you in the next video. Bye!